This is a small teaching that I would like to do on what's called the Little Emperor Syndrome. So you can actually look this up on the internet and find out that this is actually a syndrome or a name that's given to an issue that started happening in China when there was a one-child policy. So that meant that families were not allowed to have more than one child, or they would lose a lot of their benefits. They would be charged per child, things like that. It was a lot of very difficult rules for any families that would dare break the one-child law. And for that reason, most families had one child. Now, as that generation of children grew up, as they entered the workforce, as they entered into adult life, they found out that those children had been treated like little emperors in their house. They had no siblings to share toys with. They were never really corrected on behavior because they never had anybody to really fight with. Now, my eldest daughter, Sierra, is almost 5 years older than her next sibling. And then after that, it was like every 2 to 3 years we would have children. But the first two, for those first 5 years, I really thought my eldest child was a perfect angel. She never did anything wrong. Well, of course, she did some things wrong, but I always thought she doesn't fight with other kids. You know, she doesn't do that. And parents would say, oh, these kids fight, those kids fight. I don't know why. It didn't actually dawn on me that the reason she didn't fight with other kids is because she had no siblings to fight with. So it wasn't until we joined a missionary team where Sierra had to start to share. She had to start to, other kids were taking items that belonged to her or things like that, that I started to see that she had to be trained in character too. And then of course she started having siblings, and siblings are great teachers when it comes to character and coming to, to the place of being selfless, being able to give up your rights. It happens very often with siblings. Now, one of the benefits of homeschooling is that you don't send your siblings off to another class. You learn to work it out, and you can't say, I don't like this one, I'm not going to be friends with them anymore, because they're going to stay in your life for the rest of your life. And if you will, as parents, take advantage of that, you can help your children not to grow up to be little emperors. Now, why is this a problem? What they found in China is that these kids, when they grew up to be young adults, they did not like anyone telling them what to do. They did not work well in teams. They wanted their way. They wanted to be babied constantly. They wanted someone always listening to how they felt and not actually working to think about other people. It was a major problem. Probably still is, because you've still got that generation of young people in China with this problem going on. So you say, oh, I have a good number of kids, so I don't have this problem. They've got each other to fight with. But you still have to be intentional, because you can still raise a little emperor by giving in to their whims. Mom, give me this. And you give it to them so they'll stop crying, so they'll stop throwing a fit. I would always tell my kids, if I was going to give it to you and then you cry for it, now I'm not going to give it to you anymore, because the attitude is what I'm addressing, not the issue of the item, right? So we're looking for good attitudes. And so if they're fighting over a toy, some parents would say, well, you had it first, or you had it first. To me, it didn't matter. The fact is, the toy became more important than your sibling, and so the toy is gone. It doesn't matter that it belonged to this person or whatever. The issue is you're fighting instead of working through it. Now, of course, when they're very little, they may not understand that. You may have to distract them, but you want to work to that place where every child sees themselves as sharing, as being cooperative, as talking out their problem, as coming to you as the parent, rather than just like, and fighting or getting angry or something like that. Coming to you, mommy, this other kid took, my toy or something like that. And then you go and deal with it. And that's a proper way to negotiate need, right? Not to just hit them or grab it back or something like that. Teaching proper attitude is extremely important. Now let me tell you a little fast forward on that one. Abigail, when she got to university, of course, she's very academic and she's smart and all that, but there were a lot of kids that were very smart and a lot of kids who were very academic. In her very first year of college, she was sitting in a group studying with some students, other students, and a professor came up to her and said something to the effect of, you're the kind of student that I want to be my TA. Now, TA was a big deal. That means teacher's assistant. And those TAs, if you can earn that position, you get your schooling paid for. Now, Abby already had full scholarship, but she could have gone into her master's with that, which she eventually decided to come back to the Philippines and serve the Lord. She could have done her master's with that. So why was she chosen? If there's all these other people, she didn't even have grades yet. So it was her first year. She didn't even have any proven record. Why is this professor choosing her? Well, this is what they ended up finding out, is that it was because of Abigail's attitude, her yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am, dressing appropriately and respectfully, not looking like some of the girls would wear these crop tops and shorts and things like that. Now, here in the Philippines, we wear uniforms in schools, so that's not an option. Whereas in the US, sometimes kids will show up, it looks so disrespectful. But even if you're wearing a uniform, you can still be disrespectful. So her attitude, her presentation of herself, the way she honored and respected other teachers was why this professor approached her in her first year, telling her that. In fact, she was even told there was some kind of strange award. I'll have to ask her what it was later, but it was one of those awards that she got for a character on her job on campus when she was just working in the library. There's a lot of things that Abigail earned, and I'm just using Abby as an example. All of our kids had different stories like this, but that she earned not based on her academics, not based on her money, not based on whatever performance, whatever the thing is that people tend to focus so much on, was not the key to her success. She often found success in the fact that she could communicate, she could show respect, she presented herself well and spoke well. We were just told this a few weeks ago. One of our students in the A.C.E.S Center was in an art competition, and all these kids had beautiful and great art. They were all great art. This one girl that's in our center, I'll just call her Jennifer. It's not Jennifer, you know who you are, but let's just say it's Jennifer. So Jennifer, each of the judges comes table to table and asks about the artwork. Well, the mother of Jennifer is watching, and the judges go to this table and ask these students, and they're like, oy, oy. Their heads are down, they're naulaw, like that. And then they went to the next table, and it was a pattern. Kid after kid was not confident to speak. Then they approached Jennifer. Now, her artwork was just beautiful like everyone else's, but Jennifer spoke respectfully, eye to eye. She was able to present herself well, and she stood out in that art contest, not because of her art, but because of her presentation. And so it's very important that we teach our kids to respect each other. It's a constant daily character training. It's daily. Teach them to respect their family members, teach them to respect others, to think about the feelings of others. That's called empathy. A lot of times we do that through literature. As we're reading a story, we talk about how do you think this character felt. To talk about feelings means that I don't just think about how I feel, but how you feel. And so when we're working through conflicts with our kids, we want to make sure we talk about how did you feel, and let them hear it from each other. How did that make you feel? Well, when she said that, how did you feel? So this kind of attitude of working it through empowers them to process and to be able to communicate well. Show them respect. Big deal. If you show respect, you will probably open more doors than any degree that you could ever get, than having good grades or whatever the deal is with that. So I just want to encourage you. And then I want to say this too. Some of you might say, oh, but we have one child and we found out we can't have any more. So it's just one. And I would encourage you, if you haven't found out you can't have more, the solution is have more. But if you can't, and that's very real for some people, you can still raise a child that's not a little emperor by getting them around the community and allowing other community kids to bother them. So they have to deal with it. So they have to work through it. And they have to learn how to process. That doesn't mean leave them to play. It means that you're available to watch their play, to correct it, and to work things through with them. Now, when they get older, hopefully by teenage years, they can be out doing things with their friends alone. But if you are not there watching, all you're going to do is let the kids that have issues rub off on your kid and make them into a problem, a child with issues. But if you get your kid around kids with issues, but you work it out with them, you're giving them tools to love people who are not perfect, to work through issues when it's not easy. And so again, you can raise someone who's not a little emperor, even though they're an only child. But a very good solution is give them some siblings, because siblings will help you to raise a child that respects and honors their other kids. And this is in alignment with the Word of God. All, through Genesis, one of the first things that humans were told was to be fruitful and multiply. It's again repeated after Noah's flood: be fruitful and multiply. And then Jesus uses the same concept when he says, go make disciples. Well, we're to be fruitful both physically and spiritually. And then remember, the end of that command was not just be fruitful and multiply, but subdue the earth. So this is the part, it's not just about having kids. It's about training to rule and to reign in Jesus. And the way Jesus rules and reigns is by serving. So I hope you're blessed by that, and I hope you put it into practice, and that you don't raise those little emperors, but instead you raise servants of God who will succeed because they serve and love.